Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I bring you behind the scenes of a project I worked on earlier this summer. I was brought on as a producer with a crew of 7. I talk about the location choices and break down the lighting used to get these amazing results. So let's get into it. Jose Santiago with Doxa Productions brought me on for this project. We had a lean crew. We didn't go too crazy with it. We had Jose as the DP director. I was the producer. We had Jared as a gaffer. And then for sound, we had Eric, hair and makeup, Jenna, and then two PAs, which was Charles and Trey. They kind of helped with G&E, camera setup, anything that was needed. We all worked together to get the job done. You can see some behind the scenes here on Jose's Instagram. You could also follow everyone. Everyone would really appreciate it on their Instagram as well. One of the first jobs that I was tasked with was finding a location. And one of the requirements was a space with windows and then also a space that we could do multiple interview setups in multiple locations in this space. So I was tasked with bringing in 3 different ones. So this was one of the spaces I recommended. Another space that had some great natural light windows around the space that we could utilize, and then another one here didn't have as many windows, but did give us the opportunity to actually have different setups in a small space. And this is actually George's studio, which is blank. And we've actually shot there multiple times if you watch the vlogs. The client decided that they were going to also look for some, and they chose this location. They went to scout it with Jose and realized it was a lot smaller than they expected. So they went on the hunt for another location and ended up landing on the one we filmed at, which is shown here. So that's just a little insight on hunting down locations, on what clients wanted. This fit the look overall of what they were going for. And this was the one that was picked overall versus the others. Now, things to consider when looking at these spaces is access. This was on a second floor. Luckily, they had an elevator, but some of the spaces may look really nice and only have access with stairs, and that just makes it a lot harder to bring equipment up and load out. Let's take a look at the setup. You can see we have a dome shining on the subject. Up at the ceiling, we have a bounce of light that's creating a fill and bringing up the room tone. Our windows are to the left of the subject, camera right. That's why we're motivating our key light from that same direction, bringing it around and giving it a little bit of a wrap. In the background, you can actually see some light shining through onto those picture frames straight back. And to the left of the subject, we actually had a bounce to give us a little bit more fill. And we were connecting via the Sony control app to get a good look at everything. So we really wanted to utilize the big space and the windows to motivate the lighting of the subject. So wherever the light's naturally coming from, we wanted to replicate that and give it that same look overall. And then right there, you see that white bounce that's creating some fill. Right here, we have a 300C with a spotlight that's carrying over through the windows into the background, straight back, giving us a pop of light. And this is what it looked like out of camera on the wide shot. Here's the false color LUT applied to it so you can see where the levels are, and a side by side with the wide shot with false color. And here's the tight shot. You can see we're wrapping the light around. We've got multiple layers of light. The false color LUT is giving you an idea of where the light is hitting and the levels we're at. And here is a side by side. Here are the lights that were used. We used a 600D going into a 150 dome for our key light. We had a 600X bouncing off the ceiling to bring up the room levels and also give a little bit of an edge fill effect. And then we had a 300C outside with a spotlight shining through the window. We also used a tube, which was the Amaran T2C with a 45-degree grid, giving us a hair light and edge. A lot of times when you film in small places or spaces that aren't as aesthetic, you can't really take advantage of shooting really wide. You want to compress your frame and make it where you don't see the space because usually it's ugly. But with this one, it looked really nice. So we wanted to take advantage of these big windows. That's actually Jared from the YouTube channel Lens of Jared. He was brought on as a gaffer, but he's a sit in the space right now. And right there, sitting on the right side of frame, is Jose, who brought me on to the shoot. Really thankful for him having me out on the shoot. Big spaces also introduce some challenges. So you will get a lot of echo if you're in a big space with a lot of flat surfaces. So we set down a piece of material, I think it's duvetting, on the floor just under the subject to help reduce some of that echoing. With the frame being a lot wider, we did have to move the bounce that's right there on your left-hand side. That's a 5-in-1 reflector, a little further out of frame. We also had to pay attention to our key light, which was the 150 dome with the 600D, and it had to get pushed out of frame a little bit more, but it was all being motivated by that big window. It was a beautiful source of light. We had to have a lot of output to be able to compete with the outside and make it where the levels on the outside weren't blown out too much, and it gave it a nice aesthetic look overall. So those are the things you have to consider. Also, reflections can be an issue as well. So you have to be real strategic. That's why the light was higher, and then we cheat it accordingly to make things work. And then you can see right there the 600x is bouncing into the ceiling, giving us some levels to bring everything up. This is the wide shot with Jared sitting in there. You can actually see a little bit of edge on him being created from those windows outside. And then here's a false color side by side with the regular frame. And then we're going to go in for the tight. And you could see on his shoulder, his neck, and his hair, we're getting that hair light. You can even see it in the false color that it's hitting him, creating a nice edge. And here's the side by side. And that was no added light to create that beautiful edge. Looks so great. On this one, we had the 600X bouncing into the ceiling, the 600D with the 150 dome. And that was it. That was the lighting, aside from just that 5-in-1 reflector, which was giving us a little bit of return on the subject for the fill side. Do you think we took advantage of this location utilizing those big windows? Let me know what you think of the lighting setup as well down in the comments. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. I'm pretty sure the client tagged us in the final video. Thanks so much for everyone that watches the channel, supports by liking, commenting, and I'll see you on the next one.